Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Fahrbach. On Thursday, President Donald Trump's Board of Peace convenes for its inaugural session in Washington, D.C., bringing a mix of global representatives amid questions over its mandate, legitimacy, and role in Gaza's reconstruction. While the U.S. seeks to centralize influence, European leaders are debating the future of their own security, including the possibility of a nuclear deterrent independent of American support. Now, to analyze the latest developments, we are now joined by Markus Ziener, visiting senior fellow, the German Marshall Fund of the United States. Good to have you on TVP World. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's begin with the Board of Peace. I mean, this started very much already with a certain type of controversy. It was meant to be this idea of overseeing Gaza reconstruction. It's done now something else. This first meeting, what does it signal to the world? What do you think is next, and how much, let's say, will come out of this in Washington?
Well, what does it signal actually depends on where you're standing in this whole process. I mean, if I take up a European position, I think there is significant doubt that this Peace Council might be something that is running in competition to the United Nations and is going to contribute to the erosion of trust into the United Nations. So you have to ask, okay, is this something that can really help facilitate a peace and a lasting peace in Gaza and the Middle East? Or is that a tool to actually increase the influence of the United States and others in the region? So it depends really on where you stand on the whole subject.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it is a matter of perspective, and I want to dig into that a little bit more. I mean, some countries have categorically ruled out any participation. They refuse those invites, including France, for instance, also Germany. But yet some countries have said yes and no, sending observers, for instance, if we're looking at countries like Greece and Italy. At the same time, looking also in our region into Poland, also an observer being sent. What does that signal to us here? I mean, is this still an effort to maybe be part of it? Is it something else? What does this observer, let's say, send out tell us?
Well, if we look into the whole setup of this Peace Council, I think it's complicated, and I think Europeans are walking a fine line here. I mean, there was the latest decision by the German government actually to send an observer, a top diplomat, but actually on a lower level of observation, to not be outside of this entity that's created here. On the other hand, they don't want to join this Peace Council as a full member, not only because of the whole structure of the Peace Council, but because I think, now speaking for the German government, I think their main goal is to kind of keep the United Nations as the main place to go when it comes to facilitating peace in the world. Now, let's talk a little maybe about about the critical aspects of this Peace Council. I mean, if you setting up a council that's basically saying, well, you have to pay to play, saying, well, if you contribute $1 billion to be a member in this Peace Council, I mean, that's also already quite remarkable, let's put it this way. Why? Because it's establishing an elite group of members who can then, because they are able to pay that money, who can decide over the fate of a whole region. This is not going down very well. And then, of course, there's another point. It has to do with accountability. The chair of this Peace Council is Donald Trump. He is supposed to be there for life, and he has the right to veto. So basically, without his consent, no decision can be taken. That's also not really what probably many would consider to be a very democratic structure of this council.
Mm-hmm. And just also really briefly, I want to know what you make of the European Union also setting a commissioner, I believe the Commissioner for Mediterranean Affairs, Ms. Suica. I mean, this is interesting, right? Because at the same time, most European capitals have ruled out participation, yet the Commission is sending an observer. What do you make of that?
I think it's another indication that, again, it's a fine line. I mean, you don't want to be outside of this council. At the same time, you want to be, you don't want to endorse what's happening here. I think, one has to admit to a certain degree that, yes, the United Nations has its shortcomings, and there is probably a need to reform either the United Nations or to establish something that is better equipped to deal with conflicts like the one we're seeing in Gaza. I mean, what is this Peace Council now doing today? I mean, it's the first session, and they want to finalize basically the structure of a force that's going to an international stabilization force that's going to replace the IDF, the Israeli military in the region, and also to establish an administration that is going to run basically Gaza. Mm-hmm. And I think that's in itself, that's not a bad thing to do.
All right, so many issues, and we'll obviously be covering it. I want to jump also into bigger security issues at the same time. One of the things, you were there at the Munich Security Conference, that's still something we're analyzing. Let's talk about also recent developments looking at that nuclear deterrence. I mean, this is something, that umbrella that has been covering Europe from the United States ever since the establishment very much of NATO after the Second World War. Looking now at recent comments, including that of the German Chancellor, who has ruled out, I believe, that there could be such a thing as its own nuclear program, but nevertheless, a nuclear umbrella, maybe by France, maybe covered by the UK. How realistic is that right now, and how do we take these recent words from the German Chancellor and the French?
I think the comments by the German Chancellor are made on the background that it's actually not that easy to just slip under the protection of the UK or the French. And why? Because technically, because the weapons, the nuclear weapons they are possessing, are aimed at long-range missiles. They are not really helping Germany in that sense as the US protection is helping here. So in a sense, it's not so easy just to do it. And then at the same time, if you look at what's going on right now in the FCAS project, which is a project to build a new fighter jet, a joint fighter jet between Germany, France, Spain, it's so complicated. It looks like the whole project is going to disintegrate. Why? Because there are so many egoisms at play. The French want to be in the lead of this project. The Germans don't want to only pay and leave it all up to Paris to decide what's going to happen. It could be that this whole project is going to falter. And I think that's an indication of how many national interests are at play here. Mm-hmm. Now let's get back to the question whether a European bomb or whether a national bomb would really help here. I mean, again, it's not so easy. I mean, you building a bomb is one thing, but then to have the ability and the capabilities of using that bomb requires a huge environment that is supporting that. And I mean, this is not done overnight, and as long as we are not having that capabilities, I think it's right to talk about it. But I think we have to stick what we have, and what we have is the best option is to believe that the Americans will provide that protection.
Just really quickly at the end, I want to ask you as well the criticism by Germany's Foreign Minister Wadepool saying that the French should actually be spending more on defense. You mentioned the complicated challenges between the countries. Having that, how much is really realistic here compared to the statements, the complication? Can Europe really do defense? Can the Germans and the French really do this together on other defense projects on the nuclear front?
Well, technically, I think they can. I mean, if you look at the fighter jets, if you look at the tanks that are produced, I think they are able to do that. And with the Swedish now being part of NATO, there's also a third component coming into play, which also is helping here, because the Swedes have their own fighter jet. However, let me just one point, I think that's really important here. Why do we have this discussion? We have this discussion because there's an erosion of trust when it comes to the United States. We're not sure that the Americans are really providing the nuclear deterrence we're needing. And if really a fight will break out, will the Americans protect us? And this is, and also in Munich, at the Munich Security Conference, I think it was really visible that we don't know. We are not sure anymore. And the whole concept of deterrence is based on the belief that the other side, aka the Russians, that they trust that the Americans will come to our rescue if something bad is going to happen in the center of Europe. Mm-hmm. And this trust is not there anymore.
Right, the trust isn't there, but also the way forward is still going to be challenging, whatever that may be. Look, thank you so much for all that. Really having you here is a pleasure. Markus Ziener from the German Marshall Fund of the United States. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.